Hi everyone, I'm XINYI Wei. Today I'm going to talk about a question from Task 1 of Part A. Should shareholders have a say on acquisitions? The discussion is based on the article, which compares shareholder voting practice in large merger and acquisition transactions in the US and the UK. The articles mainly talk about that while some acquisitions can create value, many large acquisitions can harm the value of the acquiring company's shareholders. Therefore, my point is whether granting shareholders voting rights can maximize their interests without reducing transactions efficiency. Let me start with what the two models look like, because the rule design shapes everything else. In the UK, if an acquisition is large enough to qualify as a Class 1 deal, meaning it causes a 25% relative size threshold, the company must go to shareholders and get approval. In the US, shareholders voting is much easier to avoid. The vote is mainly targeted when the acquirer issues a large amount of new equity. But if the company uses cash or debit, it can often proceed without a shareholder vote. So, all in all, the UK model forces voting for large deals by default, while the US model leaves more room for boards and managers to decide, and structure around voting requirements. I support giving shareholders a say on acquisitions, especially when a deal reshapes the firm's risks, leverage, and long-term declaration. Acquisitions aren't routine operating decisions. They can materially change profits and risks exposure, so owners should approve high-stakes moves. Voting also creates agency problems by adding a checkpoint that forces managers to justify signatures and display the price. This is where the article's evidence matters. From the figure 1 in my PowerPoint shows a clear pattern. UK vote-required Class 1 deals are associated with higher abnormal value on average, while large US deals show lower abnormal value over the sample period. The pattern supports that the idea that monetary voting can reduce value-destroying outcomes at the big deal end. A concentrate example is the Q&A case. The point here isn't the price fail, therefore voting can fixes everything. The point is that in a system where a vote can be avoided, managers can push through a very large acquisitions using deal structure, and shareholders are left reacting after the fact. In that case, Occidental used a financing approach that avoided a shareholder vote, and the market reaction was strongly negative. Its share price underperformed the S&P 500 by around 20% in the following months. I want to use this kind of example to agree with the shareholders should at least have a chance to speak before the firm commits to a transformational, high-risk deal. While it is important to support with shareholders' opinions on acquisitions, there are still some potential flaws, so I would like to talk about its drawbacks. First, mandatory voting raises costs, proxy solicitation, meeting formulates legal work, and slows execution. In competitive deals, speed and certainty matter. Extra approval steps reduce certainty and make completion harder. Second, social rules can be gamed. With a social rule, firms may engineer deals to stay just below it, splitting transactions or tweaking consideration to avoid a vote. Voting works best with strong disclosure and serious information. Otherwise, managers treat the rule as something to work around, not a real constraint. Third, shareholders forces information asymmetry. They may react to short-term market swings or headline and miss longer-term strategic logic. So disclosure and a clear board narrative are still necessary. Now let me discuss about the against position. Shareholders should not have a say on acquisitions. The strongest argument here is efficiency and decision quality. Boards and managers have deal-level information negotiations, integration plans, competition. While despite shareholders may struggle to judge complex synergies quickly. On this view, shareholders elect director to decide, so mandatory votes just add delay. A second important agreement is about deal certainty and timing. The US model is more board certain, enabling faster, more flexible execution, useful in competitive acquisitions, and it can single higher deal certainty to the target. By contrast, the UK model adds a shareholder approval step for large deals, which critics say can slow timelines and make the better offer less attractive. A practical point linked to another article citing is that subject to shareholder approval can make a bad look less certain to the target. In a competitive acquisition, targets may prefer offers that are cleaner and more practicable. So opponents of voting agree that mandatory votes can weaken real-world execution, even if they sound good in theory. But the anti-vote position have votes too. The main concern is agency risk. Without a vote, managers may pressure high premium in pre-building acquisitions, and shareholders only discover the damage after the price falls. The article shows a worrying pattern. Large US deals had bigger average value losses than vote-targeted UK deals in the same period in 2016, suggesting that leaving everything to managers can be costly for shareholders. Also, if managers can use cash or debit to avoid a vote, the system can encourage financial engineering that signals shareholders oversight exactly when oversight is most needed. During the largest and riskiest deal, if we don't recur votes, we must need to strengthen other safeguards, like independent director accountability and high-quality disclosure. Otherwise, shareholders are basically forced to accept management's decisions, and it causes even greater losses. In conclusion, after reading both sides, I personally agree with shareholders have a say on acquisitions, especially the big, transformative ones. I'm not saying everything acquisitions need a vote, but the UK style looks like a practical compromise. It targets the highest stakes transactions, adds discipline before commitment, and reduces the chance that managers push through expensive, value-destroying deals without the real accountability. Thanks for your listening and finish.